Hiya. I thought I'd do another baking video. This time it's apricot and what am I doing? Apricot and ginger cookies. I was in the middle of making them and then I forgot that I should do this, so I have already skipped ahead slightly, but not very far. In here is butter and 2 types of sugar. I've got a muscovado and caster. You can just use normal caster, but for some reason I felt like I would live on the edge, so I put a bit of muscovado in there as well. The measurements I've got written down here. Okay, I'm adapting it from a recipe I found online. It is an American recipe, so the measurements are all in cups, which I find really confusing, so I've translated that, and also it's for a magnificently sized portion and I don't need all that, so I've halved it all. So they're odd measurements on here, but there is a method in my madness. Margarine, again, I'm using the trusty old stalk, and also 2 types of sugar. I used 5 tablespoons of butter, which does equate, we worked it out, is 15 grams per tablespoon, so that's 75? I can't do the maths. Anyway, 5 tablespoons. And then the sugar part was about 60 grams of sugar-ish. So I bung that in there and I've beaten it up. So it's light and fluffy. 1 egg from the farm down the road. Oh, shit. There we go. Okay, so I've beaten the egg and I don't know if you can see in the light, it looks slightly curdled, but essentially just bear with it. Just wait for the egg to be completely beaten in and it should go more smooth and less like really shit scrambled egg. There we go. Right, that'll do. Next thing is the ginger. I'm going to use 2 types of ginger, ground ginger and fresh ginger. Ginger, mine's pretty manky and old, but that's still fine, it's what's inside that counts. So I need about a tablespoon amount. That's actually quite small, so I might add a bit more onto that. Make it super, super gingery. So just take off the skin. And then basically, I don't want big chunks in my cookies, so I might chop this really, really finely. I think I'll probably do it that way. You can grate it, but stupidly I've cut 2 smaller chunks, so I don't know how I'll get on grating it. So I'll just give it a go as is. Anyway. Woohoo! There we go, that should do. Nicely finely chopped. So all that ginger I'm going to just pop straight in to my mixture. Ground cinnamon, ground nutmeg and ground ginger. Let's give this a go. So it's about half a tablespoon you need of this. These will be super, super gingery. So just want to double check I am. Oh, yeah, okay, that is ground ginger. That's fine, in that goes. Sometimes I don't trust my spice labelling. Ground cinnamon, ooh, we're nearly out. Shovel that in there. I once did a dish with what I thought was ground cinnamon, only to find out that it was cayenne pepper, which wasn't quite so nice. Oh, my spoon's too big. And then just a little bit, I'd say maybe a teaspoon worth of ground nutmeg in there as well. So there are all your spices. This recipe really weirdly asks for salt and pepper, so I'm going to do what it says. Not going to judge. I'll do. I mean, I don't know if you can see, I've kind of got quite a big pinch there. actually need maybe a bit less. I don't know why I do that. I don't know if that's a thing other people do. I always throw salt over my shoulder if I grate it. Anyway, so I'm going to mix all this in here, which is lovely and gingery. And then the last thing to add, or the second last thing to add, is the dry mix, which is flour and baking powder. Now, I remember when I last did this, I went into great lengths of discussing the difference between self-raising flour and plain flour. This recipe in America calls for all-purpose flour, which is exactly the same as plain flour. This recipe asks for that, and then you add the bicarb of soda. So essentially, if you've only got self-raising, just put that in, but just don't put any of the baking soda in, otherwise you might get very like bubbly cookie mixture, which when it cooks, if you've got too much raising agent in, it kind of expands a bit like expanding foam or honeycomb, but isn't as tasty as honeycomb, not expanding foam. I don't know what it's trying to think it's like. Anyway, I'm just rabbiting on. Right, so flour. Reset my scales. Bum, bum, bum. Right. 125 grams of flour. See how I get on here. Like 30-ish grams are in a heaped tablespoon, which is an idea. It's 4. Put a little bit more in. 4. There we go. And then get the bicarb out. Half a teaspoon or half? Yeah, half a teaspoon. So about that. Also, mine's out of date, but like I said before, beggars can't be choosers. I'm just basically using anything in my cupboard right now. You mix this until it's a nice kind of batter, and then we add the apricots. Now, for some reason, this is quite liquidy, and I know it's supposed to be a cookie mixture, so I might run the risk of making odd cookies and add a bit more flour, but I'll see how it goes. I want it to be able to be workable. I don't want it to be runny like a cake, so we'll soon find out. Okay, so my mixture, while very gingery, I'm actually finding quite a bit runny, so I'm going to add a little bit more flour. If you actually follow a recipe as diligently as I do not, then you probably aren't in this situation. But also, some biscuit batters are quite runny, but I'm just being difficult, so I'm going to add a bit more flour to it, because I don't trust it. Add another tablespoon, see if that does anything. Now I'm going to chop up some apricots. Bought them in a shop, nothing special. I think the recipe calls for like 60 grams again, so I might measure these out and actually follow the instructions for once. So I'm just chopping up the apricots. And then throw them in the mixture. I've gone for 2 trays because I reckon that's probably how much mixture I'm going to have. Just grab some baking paper, put them on the bottom. If you don't have that, just put a load of fat on your tray to stop the cookies sticking. They should be fine if you've got a non-stick tray anyway, so don't be afraid. Just so you know, I've added a little bit more flour, like I said. So actually, it originally was 120 grams, but I think I've probably used 140 in total, just in case you're wondering. The other thing you could do is, because obviously the butter, if it's warm, when it melts, that's what makes the mixture a bit more gloopy. So you could always just bung it in the fridge and hopefully the mixture should set, which makes it more malleable. Like a tablespoon amount of mixture for each cookie. Just sort of dollop it on. When it cooks, the fat will melt further and the cookie will spread. And whack them in the oven. which I've put on high to warm up, and then I'm going to drop it right down to 175 degrees. And I expect to check on these probably in about 10 to 15 minutes. Same kind of logic as when you're doing muffins. They're small, so they will cook quicker, and also because of the higher flour content, they will probably burn as well quicker. So you just want to make sure that because they're nice and thin on the tray, they'll catch. So you just want to make sure you have eyes on it. So I've done 6 on there. They're a bit higgledy-piggledy in size, roughly the same amount of mixture, so I'm going to whack those in and hope for the best. A tip, if your baking parchment keeps on flapping around, just put a bit of fat underneath and it will stick in position. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, they've been in for 12 minutes, so I reckon they might be time to come out. Let's have a look. Ta-da! So these are the finished cookies. They have puffed up, like I expected, with the soda, which I think probably makes quite a good biscuit. But if you tap it, I don't know if you can hear that. It's got quite like a hollow sound in the middle, which means that it's cooked. These are really hot, so I'm going to put them down. I'd probably say they're more like scones, I'd say, because they're quite a doughy mixture. Let's tear one in half, see what we've got. There you go. They're really nice. I don't even like apricots.